It's the debate, stupid. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy, a channel aimed at intelligent people wanting to discuss important issues facing life and society. My name is Crispin, and for those that have been following me for years, you'll know that I'm a political forecaster and I spend a lot of time talking about the US elections and politics. And a question that I'm often asked is why I haven't said more about the 2020 campaign. Well, I mean, first of all, I have discussed the primaries in detail during the pre-COVID era. I did publish a piece that said, look, you know, even after Bernie had won Iowa and New Hampshire, that it was very likely that Joe Biden would come back after South Carolina, and there was a whole lot of reasons for that. But then I did go quiet when it sort of settled on a Biden-Trump race. The reason, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, after 2015, 2016, people listened to me much more on these issues than they ever have before. And then when I say something, people, you know, capital flows do tend to shift. And therefore, I'm much more careful about the things that I say because I know that my words carry a certain degree of responsibility and weight. Secondly, and this is much more important, is I don't want to say something where I'm not 100% confident, right? So I was very confident in 2015, 2016 that the whole world was wrong, that Donald Trump was absolutely going to win the Republican nomination and win the presidency. Like there was, all you had to do was you do real analysis, not, you know, the political astrology that some of the celebrity forecasters put out, but actual, if you look at all the information that's available and synthesize it appropriately, Donald Trump's election was quite well assured, right? Whereas this time, it's unclear, right? And it's unclear because it's much harder to forecast even 6 months, 4 months, 5 months into the future today than it was 2 years into the future in early 2015, okay? We're living in an unprecedented disruption. The electorate in the United States is highly volatile. The partisanship and ideology is becoming fragmented and extreme. People's livelihoods have been massively upended. And what will happen on election day remains quite unclear. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to give a prediction in this video, but I will lay out the framework that people have to start thinking about. First things, there are things I can discount. Absolutely, Donald Trump can win this election, right? Ignore the pollsters, ignore these people. They've never been right. Listen to me, okay? But I will lay out to you the frameworks of how to analyze this situation without giving away all my techniques and so on, just the framework, and that you'll understand why it is such a complex picture. So first of all, people across the world seldom want to change leaders in the middle of a crisis, right? Things are uncertain enough, okay? And even if things are bad, they're certainly bad if you have an existing leader. So people don't necessarily want to jump ship to someone else. However, in this case, Joe Biden is more of a known quantity. He's been around a long time. He was vice president. People feel like they would get a sense of his presidency. But that also doesn't tell the full story because he is someone of incredibly senior years. He would be easily the oldest president ever to be elected in the United States before. And there are serious questions about his energy and cognitive decline, right? And I'll just be frank, people do think he has serious mental problems, and that his vice presidential pick will very likely be the effective president within a couple of years. So first of all, is he capable of managing the crisis? And then will he even be around in a few years to handle things moving into recovery? That's very well. The American people are thinking about this. In a campaign sense, there are lessons that the Biden campaign have learned from Hillary Clinton's defeat, and they have learned those lessons. So they're spending much more time in those Rust Belt states, you know, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, that Hillary just assumed she was going to win, right? That went Trump. Biden himself and his campaign staff are not getting absorbed into this radical left BLM, tear down statues, defund the police stuff, right? They are separating themselves from it. However, they're still being tarred by it because the message that the Trump campaign has latched onto, and I think effectively, although it requires some refinement, is that they go, well, Biden himself may not be this, but he is old, he is controlled by these radical left agenda. He's not going to be around anyway. Just look at what the Democratic Party is today. And that is something the American people are running from. Like, they're terrified of, a communist Marxist revolution of intersectionality and reparations, right? Like, that's just where the police are torn down, where there's total anarchy, where we have separatist movements, little areas of various city districts and so on, declaring independence. All of this stuff is a real concern for the United States. So especially so in this environment where the economy is collapsing, millions of people have come down with COVID, and these radical movements that have got huge amounts of weird levels of support in places like Silicon Valley and so on, they're no longer perceived as this sort of oddity that people can kind of, in their teenage years kind of rebel with, right? They're now perceived as genuine threats to the republic. And so Americans will much more likely rally around the person that's trying to protect the American story, which is perceived to be Donald Trump. But again, he is also someone that has been perceived to have not done the public health crisis well, right? Like, he is, he does look to be out of his depth when it comes to managing the crisis, and that President Trump does look like he's trying to spin things a certain way rather than deal with the issues, and looks like he's trying to scapegoat others like, Dr. Fauci and people like that. And the American people can see that he hasn't done a good job in this space. And as a consequence, they will punish him to a degree. But come November, this is the thing. So people who assume that because of COVID and because of the unemployment and all the rest of it, that Trump is going to lose, miss a really important part. And that is, come November, the Americans will be mostly past the first wave of this disease. Okay. The trend lines of deaths and infections will absolutely be going downward, and Americans will start to be thinking about the future, right? They won't be just dealing with the immediate crisis. They'll be thinking about what's next. And when they look at Biden, they'll see someone who is in massive decline. Let's face it. It's a gaslighting of the entire American people that the Democratic Party are trying to do, that Biden is somehow this great, glorious leader. They're hiding him as much as possible because every time he speaks, he embarrasses himself. And the Democratic Party are looking like a group of elder abusers, right? That they're forcing this guy to run, right? I mean, it's just and the fact that that they had such better talent. So if Tulsi Gabbard was the nominee, or Andrew Yang, imagine a Tulsi Andrew Yang ticket, okay? Young, energetic, intelligent, articulate, motivated, honorable, not corrupt, next generation, future forward-thinking people, they would wax Trump. Absolutely wax Trump. Tulsi is loved by a whole bunch of Trump supporters for very good reasons, and that's precisely why she's hated by whole segments of the Democratic Party, right? The partisanship is such that the Democrats view Republicans as evil in a way that Republicans might fear Democratic party ideology, but don't necessarily think their practitioners are bad people, just seriously misguided. And that misperception across party lines in different segments of the United States will play out in the election, because it means that that the people who are in the center will see the Republicans as far less scary and far less aggressive. The movement of people within the Republican Party to more of a workers' party is a huge shift. It is probably Trump's greatest domestic achievement, was to move the Republican Party back towards what it was during the Lincoln years, rather than the Rockefeller period. So what you have is this massive shift between, in terms of wealth inequality in the United States. At the moment, US billionaires have made $600 billion US at a time where 50 million Americans have lost their jobs. That is unimaginable. Now, in any previous era, the Republicans would be destroyed for that, okay, because they're perceived as the trickle-down economic Reagan-esque types. And the fact that this is happening, Republicans would be blamed, okay? They'd be like, well, let's invest in, companies and make sure that they can survive, and that'll help the working class. That just won't play this time. But Trump, to his enormous credit, has managed to shift public perceptions of the Republican Party away from that Reagan era, explicitly rejecting it, towards a forgotten American, renegotiate those trade deals, bring those jobs back to the United States, focus on the working class. Wealth inequality is a big deal. And there was a expose that I think a Bloomberg video did on the wealth that was created during COVID for the billionaires versus everybody else. Trump, even though the video was critical of Trump in an implied way, because Bloomberg obviously is against Trump, he published support for this, right? He's like, I agree with this, and we have to do something about this. This is something Biden is just unable to articulate. The other thing is that there is a zeitgeist around China, like the whole spectrum of the US political establishment and the average American is now very anti-China. Trump has been anti-China for many, many years, and his foreign policy achievement was to reorient the American people towards the main game, which is the struggle against China. And Biden is notoriously soft on China. Even when he started running, he's hardened up a bit now, but when he started running, he's like, we'll piece things up with China. We shouldn't have all this rhetoric. And that is just totally out of step, not just with the Republicans or with the American people, but with his own party, who have shifted dramatically on China. And as a consequence, he's being managed and visibly managed by everyone in his party. And then this will all come down to the debates at the end of the day. So everything is extremely volatile. Right now, Americans are dealing with their day-to-day concerns and struggles, and the disruption caused by this pandemic and economic collapse. And as a consequence of that, Trump is getting a lot of the blame for that. And then that's understandable, and that's what you would expect. And the political analysts that are out there who don't understand American society, who don't understand like all the different counties and different ways of thinking and the history and the religions and all of this sort of stuff, these celebrity coastal television personalities, all they do is look at that and the polls and go, oh yeah, Biden's a walk-in. Well, they don't understand. They just don't, right? In the case of the US election, there are things that are in Biden's favor. That is a pandemic, the economic collapse, the fact that his campaign has learned some of the lessons of the 2016 defeat, that is, focus on these swing states, disassociate yourself from the left extreme ideology that's a major wing of the Democratic Party, and in Biden's case specifically, minimize his weaknesses by not letting him out in public, right? Those things are actually effective and they are working, and it does demonstrate a sense of maturity that they have this self-awareness, and the American people respect that. They kind of go, well, yes, Biden does seem to be surrounded by handlers, but are his handlers so bad given they seem to be doing okay, right? Having said that, they haven't made up their minds. And they absolutely haven't made up their minds. And when we come to November, things are going to be different. We're going to be past that main hump of the disease. Things will be looking up, and people will be looking forward to the next 4 years and being like, okay, what am I more afraid of? Trump populism or this left radical ideology that I think is going to take over the Democratic Party, right? Most people are going to be more afraid of that. Does it mean that Trump is going to win? Well, the electoral college system is kind of unusual in this respect. It's uncertain. What is certain? This is the takeaway, hot take, if you like, from this video, is that the debates will make or break this election. This could all come down to Biden forgetting who he is and what he has to say for a full minute on live television and everyone goes, we can't vote for a guy with Alzheimer's, right? That's just like, that could happen, right? And nobody can really say that it won't. And that's why we have all these surrogates coming out right now urging Trump urging Biden not to debate Donald Trump in these presidential debates. Now, that would kill Biden's campaign. They can't hide him forever because they've had, in the US system, the presidential debates are a fixture. They've been there every single election since 1960. And if Biden is unable or unwilling to come out and sell to the American people his ideas and why he should be elected president of the United States, the American people are not going to take that insult, right? So he's going to have to come out and debate. And he will have a lot of support from moderators and things like that who will try and protect him and guide him through, just like was the case with Hillary Clinton. But at the end of the day, he's going to be the one staring into the camera, trying to persuade the American people to vote for him. And going by the gaffes so far, Trump is going to annihilate him, right? All Biden has to do is to look serious, look mature, have well-articulated ideas, not get caught up in his own words and not forget things, right? And he can probably just let Trump's, insults and swipes wash over him. And if he can keep it together for the, 5 hours across 3 debates or whatever, then he will likely win. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Do I think he's going to assuage people who are worried about his age, about the fact that, okay, when he's pushed to the side, all these ideologues that want to, turn America into this communist utopia, what's their future role going to be in American politics? Are they going to be persuaded that Biden's got them under control? I don't think they will. So come election day, it's going to be really tight. Now, I will have more to say about this as things develop, but ultimately, I'm not going to be able to make a clear prediction until I've seen at least one of the debates. But certainly, that's the answer. Wait for the debates. Don't let anyone to tell you that it's a lock-up either way. It's not. It's contested. And both sides have interesting operations and campaign strategies, but it will be solved in the debates and not before. If you found value in this conversation, please do like and subscribe. Of course, I'll talk more about the election, but it'll probably be more aspects of the election and how it reflects on American life rather than the election result itself, because, as I said, it's unclear. But if you're interested in that and how this analysis works, by all means, subscribe. And if you have any comments on this, any ideas of your own about the way the election is going to go and other aspects thereof, please comment down below. We'll address them in the Week in Review. So thank you for listening in, and I'll see you next time.